They said it was too late. Then the world learned his name, the inspiring story of Vozinha. Have you ever looked at your life and quietly wondered, did I miss my chance? Maybe you've watched people younger than you build successful businesses. Maybe you've seen friends get promoted while you're still trying to figure things out. Maybe you've spent years caring for everyone else and somewhere along the way convinced yourself that your dreams had an expiration date. If you've ever felt that way, I want to tell you an inspiring story, not just about football, not just about the World Cup, but about what becomes possible when someone refuses to give up on themselves. During the 2026 FIFA World Cup, millions of people around the world discovered a man named Vozinha. Until then, unless you followed African football or knew Cape Verdean football, chances are you have never heard of him. He wasn't the biggest celebrity. He wasn't the highest paid goalkeeper. He wasn't playing for one of the traditional football giants. He was simply a man who had spent years quietly representing his country. Then, at 40 years old, the world finally noticed. Against some of the greatest footballers on earth, he produced extraordinary performances that earned respect from fans everywhere. People weren't simply impressed by the saves, they were inspired by the story behind them. Because whether you love football or not, we all understand what it feels like to wait. We live in a culture obsessed with early successes. The 22-year-old entrepreneur, the best of 30 under 30, the teenage athlete, the young millionaire, the social media influencer who becomes famous overnight. We're constantly shown examples of people succeeding earlier and earlier. And without even realizing it, we begin measuring our own worth against someone else's timeline. 30, I should be further ahead. 40, maybe it's too late. 50, perhaps I missed my opportunity. These thoughts are incredibly common, but they're also incredibly dangerous because they convince people to stop believing long before life has even finished writing their story. One of my favorite quotes says, "Comparison is the thief of joy." I would add something else. Comparison is often the thief of courage, too. Because once we start comparing our chapter 3 to someone else's chapter 15, we stop moving, we stop creating, we stop risking. Not because we're incapable, but because we're convinced. We've convinced ourselves the opportunity has passed. Here's what I find fascinating about Vozinha's story. Nothing magical suddenly happened when he turned 40. He didn't wake up one morning and become an incredible goalkeeper. The world simply caught up with years of unseen preparation. Think about that for a moment. How many practices, how many training sessions, how many disappointments, how many ordinary Tuesdays did anybody ever see? Did nobody ever see? We celebrate the performance. We rarely appreciate the preparation. This is true in every profession: the successful author, the speaker, the entrepreneur, the musician, the coach, the teacher, the parent. We see one defining moment. We don't see the thousands of ordinary moments that created it. And that's where so many people quit, because it's so easy to quit, because preparation rarely feels glamorous. It feels repetitive. It feels lonely. It feels invisible. As a breathwork coach, I see something very similar. People think confidence arrives first, then we take action. But in reality, confidence is usually the result of repeated action, not the prerequisite for it. The nervous system doesn't become resilient because life gets easier. It becomes resilient because we repeatedly show ourselves that we can survive discomfort. Every time you keep going, despite uncertainty, your nervous system learns something. I can do hard things. Every time you choose courage over comfort, your brain rewires, not overnight, one experience at a time. I often tell my clients healing isn't just about recovering from pain. It's about recovering your belief in what's still possible. Sometimes the greatest thing that needs healing isn't your anxiety. It isn't your burnout. It isn't your confidence. It's your relationship with hope. Because disappointment has a way of convincing us that dreaming is dangerous. So we stop dreaming, not because we don't care, but because we don't want to be hurt again. What I love about Stories like Bozina's is they quietly challenge that belief. They remind us that life doesn't always move in straight lines. Sometimes your biggest breakthrough arrives decades after you imagine it would. Sometimes your greatest opportunity appears after years of feeling overlooked. Sometimes the very experiences you thought were setting you back were actually preparing you. I also think there's something so beautiful about representing Cape Verde, a small island nation. I had no idea it even existed before this World Cup. Not traditionally considered one of football's global powerhouses, yet during this World Cup, millions of people were cheering for them. Why? Because human beings naturally connect with courage. We admire people willing to dream beyond what statistics can predict. And maybe that's because deep down we want permission to do the same. If you're watching this today, maybe your dream has nothing to do with football. Maybe you want to write a book, start a business, go back to school, maybe become healthier, repair a relationship, change careers, travel the world, speak on a stage, or launch a podcast, or simply become someone who wakes up excited about life again. Whatever your dream is, don't let your age become your excuse. Age measures time. It does not measure possibility. What if you're not behind? What if you are becoming? What if everything you've experienced until this moment has been preparing you for something you couldn't handle 5 years ago? Wouldn't that change the way you see your life? So here is my invitation. Stop asking, am I too late? Start asking, what can I do today that my future self will thank me for? Keep learning, keep growing, keep preparing, keep believing. Because when your opportunity arrives, you don't want to wish you had kept doing or kept going. You want to be ready. The world may not know your name today. That doesn't mean your story isn't unfolding. Someone somewhere may one day discover what you've spent years quietly building. And when they do, they'll probably call you an overnight success. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it was built on one ordinary day, one courageous decision, one act of faith at a time. So if you've been wondering whether it's too late, let Vozina's story remind you of something. Dreams don't expire, only belief does. Protect your belief because your greatest chapter may still be waiting to be written. Thank you so much for watching. If this story spoke to your heart like it did to mine, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. What dream have you almost given up on, but are choosing to believe in it again? And if this video encouraged you, please share it with someone who needs a reminder that it's never too late. Until next time, keep believing, keep becoming, and never stop breathing life into your dreams.